Hi, my name is Dr. Rasha Lawrence. I'm a medical doctor, a psychiatrist. I'm board certified in addiction medicine. I wanted to continue talking about the relationship between inner child wounds and addiction. First, I wanted to talk about the definition of inner child wounds. Most children think that they had a normal childhood. And I'm not talking about the traumas that are clearly defined. I'm not talking about physical abuse or sexual abuse or physical abandonment. I'm talking about redefining the definition of trauma. So, what is the definition of trauma that we don't identify from our childhood? But before I continue, I just want to confirm what I said before, that this is not to demonize parents or point fingers at parents. This is to diagnose where the parents went wrong unknowingly most of the time. Remember that the way to hell is paved with good intentions. Parents were just repeating patterns that they were raised by without questioning if these patterns negatively affected them or not. So this is just generational trauma, one generation after the other, passing it down from one generation to the other without questioning how it negatively affected the generations. And that's why we see that sometimes addictions run in families and sometimes it doesn't, because it is a trauma response and depends on where your mind takes you or the circumstances or the environment that you were raised in, if you're going to use drugs or alcohol or any other compulsive behavior. So, inner child wounds are identified as 5 wounds: fear of abandonment, emotional abandonment, not physical abandonment, fear of feeling left to fend for your life alone, feeling alone, that the parents were not there for you, whether the mother or the father or both, to protect you and fend for you emotionally. Fear of being rejected and feeling invisible, fear of betrayal, fear of shaming and humiliation, and fear of being treated with unfairness and injustice. So let's see how we were raised, and this is just to start to question how the way we were raised could have negatively affected us as human beings. So we develop survival roles and survival traits to survive the family environment because we have no place to go as children. Children cannot find safety or food on their own until they are able to do so, which makes us all dependent on our parents for survival. So the traits of children of dysfunctional families. And before I get into the traits of dysfunctional families, I think it's wise to diagnose the definition of dysfunction and what is the actual function of the family. The function of the family, of a healthy family, is to create adults who are safe psychologically and, of course, physically, self-secure, self-respecting, self-worthy, and self-loving, to create an emotionally safe environment for the children, to avoid creation of a fight, flight, or freeze status in their mind that lead to a dysregulated nervous system. So let's see the criteria of a dysfunctional family. It's a family that fails to do what I just said about a functional family. And let's face it, a lot of families, if not the majority of the families, have dysfunctional traits because no one ever questioned how they were raised. So they repeated the pattern of the generational trauma. That leads to, and this is from the adult children of dysfunctional families: mistrust, procrastination, isolation, perfectionism, stuffing our feelings, judging ourselves harshly, addicted to excitement, confused love and pity. We become reactive instead of actually being proactive or neutral in certain situations. Terrified of abandonment, and that's the first fear that I talked about, and that is the biggest trauma of our inner child, the fear of abandonment. And I will be talking more and more in future videos about how that fear of abandonment manifests itself in our feelings, in our thoughts, and in our behavior. And remember, thoughts lead to feelings and behavior. And I said terrified of abandonment, approval seekers, self-sacrifice. And how do these demonstrate in our life? Fear of abandonment, self-sacrifice, approval seekers is feeling guilty when you stand up for yourself. Feeling guilty when you feel that you're putting your needs and wants and expectations first before your parents, even if they are legitimate needs and wants and expectations. For example, your brain is not wired to be a doctor or a lawyer. Your brain is wired to be an artist, but your parents forced you to go to medical school. This is one of the simplest example of self-sacrifice. I will feel guilty if I disappoint my parent and I don't become the person they want me to become, not who I am. So let's talk about simple examples of how we could have been treated and we don't see how this could have been hurting us emotionally. And this is for us to take ownership and responsibility, not to continue playing the victim role of feeling they did this to me, they did that to me, my boss makes me feel this way, people make me feel that way. Why can't people change? Why can't stop that? And start living life from sovereignty, taking ownership, to diagnose the damage and to get it treated. Period. End of story. The problem is we are resistant to acknowledge the trauma because we feel guilty that we are going to be bad-mouthing our parents. This is not bad-mouthing. If I'm a physician diagnosing you with a heart disease, I am not bad-mouthing your heart. If I'm a physician diagnosing you with a liver disease, I'm not bad-mouthing your liver. I am just stating a fact. There is a problem and it needs to be addressed. That's all. So the first step is to don't you dare think something is wrong with your mother or father. That has to go. The guilt tripping, just the thought, not even say. The thought of don't you dare think there is something wrong with your parents. They didn't do it on purpose most of the time. So we thank them for what they did, right? And we focus on where they went wrong so that we can fix the problem. So if you were told to be polite, not to talk back, and that's the definition of politeness, that means you were taught to be passive and fear asserting yourself. For fear of punishment, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, and fear of being shamed and humiliated and made fun of. That's just an example. If you were told, shut up and go to your room. Even in the past, when parents used to beat their children, they used to tell them, it hurts me more than it hurts you, which is a lie. Or this is for your best interest. Or this is gonna make you a better person, which is another lie. Or I'm beating you with a belt because I love you. That's a lie. So now we identified that physical trauma lead to emotional problems. What about the emotional trauma that has not been defined and ill-identified? Examples of these emotional trauma are sentences like that. Have you ever been demeaned or criticized? Have you ever been made a scapegoat? Have you ever been treated by your parents in a way where they took credit when things go well and blame you when they go wrong? Have they ever treated you with disrespect in front of other people? Try to live out their life through you, meaning give you examples of you're the only person that can make me happy, or all my problems are because of you. Call you, email you, text you, or just show up at your door unexpectedly. Tell you or imply that you're the reason of their depression or the problems in the family. Tell you or imply that they cannot cope without you and you're the only problem and you're the only person who can help them solve their problems. Use money to manipulate you and to control you. Threaten to make your life difficult if you don't do what they want. Ignore or discount your feelings and wants. And I'm telling you, this happened to me personally in my family, even though I don't have an alcohol or drug addiction. But it led to other compulsive behaviors in my life. For example, being an overachiever, a perfectionist, a workaholic. These are all compulsive behaviors that unfortunately are celebrated by the society, so they go overlooked. I made these mistakes with my children. I was controlled with money, so I used money to control my children's behavior. It's not a shame to admit when we do something wrong. Don't use your pride over being authentic. That's not pride, that's a pathological ego. Whether you're a parent or a child of a parent who did that, it's time to, number one, forgive yourself, forgive the parents, and look objectively at what happened, where they could have gone wrong, unknowingly or knowingly, but mostly unknowingly. Sometimes the trauma, it's not what was said or done, it's what was implied or how you interpreted what was said and done and how it was implied. Like, for example, I'm a doctor. I was busy throughout my kid's life, working long hours, studying, and I wasn't present. What did that lead to? Fear of abandonment and neglect. So it's not a shame that we admit that we make mistakes. It's not a shame that we take ownership. But it's a shame if we continue that behavior once we acknowledge it. It's a shame if we continue to beat ourselves over it. And it's a shame if we don't forgive ourselves and forget our parents for certain patterns of behaviors that we were unaware of, that were hurting us and are passed down to our children. Be the cycle breaker in your family. Break the cycle of dysfunctionality and addiction in your family. I'm going to look forward to hearing from you in the comments about your opinion about that, and I will continue talking about this in this series of inner child wounds and the relationship with addiction. Take care.